Around 1900 BCE, the brick cities of the Indus Valley collapsed. The northwest subcontinent then opened to migrating groups, starting the Vedic period. These new arrivals settled in a region they called the Sapta Sindhu, the land of 7 rivers. Here, across what is now Punjab, Haryana, and parts of Pakistan, they established a nomadic pastoral lifestyle. Looking at this ancient text, the Rigveda, we see one of the oldest religious manuscripts in the world. It contains over 1,000 hymns and serves as the primary historical window into the lives of these early tribes. Their religion focused on the direct environment around them. They worshipped elemental forces, elevating figures like Agni, the fire god, and Indra, the god of rain and war, to supreme deities. Human life in the region had moved entirely away from static urban planning and long-distance trade. Civilization was now defined by the oral traditions and mobile camps of these nature-worshipping tribes. In this early society, survival depended on livestock. Cattle were the singular measure of wealth. Land meant little. In fact, their specific word for war, gaveshti, translates literally to the search for cows. Social structure remained highly fluid. The class system at this stage was based entirely on the occupation a person chose to pursue, rather than the family they were born into. Women held considerable status. They received education, actively participated in religious sacrifices, and even composed several of the hymns found in the Rigveda. Even political leadership was distributed. As this diagram shows, the king, or Rajan, answered directly to 2 powerful public assemblies, the Sabha and the Samiti, keeping his authority in check. But pastoral life requires vast grazing lands. As tribal populations swelled, the arid plains of the northwest hit their carrying capacity. To survive this pressure, these groups turned their collective attention eastward, toward the dense, overgrown jungles of the Ganges Basin. The relative equality and mobility of the early Vedic period were products of a specific environment. The pressure to find new resources would soon push them to abandon that equilibrium entirely. Around 1000 BCE, they adopted a technology that completely rewrote the geographical and political map, iron. Armed with these new tools, settlers pushed into the Ganga-Yamuna Doab region. They cleared out thousands of square miles of thick, previously impenetrable jungle. The real shift happened in the soil. Iron-tipped plows could cut deep into the hard, fertile earth of the river basin. The result was a sudden explosion in crop yields. The math of human survival changed. A single farmer could now produce significantly more grain than his immediate family needed, creating a massive food surplus. That meant others were free to specialize in trades outside of agriculture. With fields yielding predictable, heavy harvests, the tribes stopped moving. Survival shifted to wealth accumulation, triggering a complete reorganization of how their society operated. People were no longer wandering herders. They belonged to permanent territories called Janapadas. Loyalty shifted from the extended family unit to the physical land itself. Settled land and overflowing grain silos created targets. To protect this new permanent wealth, early kings consolidated their military power, effectively stripping away the authority of the old public assemblies. The occupation-based class system hardened into a rigid hierarchy. A person's societal tier was now dictated strictly by birth. Brahmins and Kshatriyas secured the top positions, locking the lower classes into strict roles. The egalitarianism of the early plains vanished. Women were systematically excluded from the new public institutions, stripped of their educational rights, and barred from the assemblies they once helped run. Religious practices scaled alongside state power. Simple nature prayers were replaced by highly complex, expensive rituals. Only the priestly class possessed the knowledge to perform them, granting them a monopoly over spiritual life. The later Vedic period delivered agricultural security and vast territorial expansion. The cost was the permanent sacrifice of individual freedom and mobility. By the 6th century BCE, 16 massive superstates emerged, the Mahajanapadas. One quickly became the undisputed superpower, Magadha. Protected by dense hills and river borders, it sat directly over ancient India's richest iron ore veins, supplying endless weapons. This concentration of resources ignited what historians call the second urbanization. Large, sprawling cities like Rajagriha and Pataliputra replaced the old agricultural settlements. This ancient silver punch-marked coin reveals how they managed these vast urban economies. To handle the volume of long-distance trade and the rise of merchant guilds, standardized currency became a requirement. In less than 1,000 years, geography and iron had turned scattered, cattle-herding tribes into a heavily industrialized, urbanized empire. Yet the wealth pouring into these new cities created severe friction. The lower classes and merchants generated the economic prosperity, but the rigid, birth-based caste system completely blocked their social advancement. In the 6th century BCE, Buddhism and Jainism emerged. While we view them today as major religions, in the context of the Mahajanapadas, they were massive socio-political rebellions against the entrenched Vedic hierarchy. Both philosophies rejected complex priestly rituals. They championed absolute nonviolence, declared worth was determined by actions, and dismissed birth-based castes entirely. The newly wealthy merchants and the marginalized lower castes quickly threw their economic and social support behind these movements, bypassing the traditional power structure. 1,200 years of geographic shifts, technological breakthroughs, and social friction built these first great empires, and simultaneously forged the complex, diverse DNA of Indian civilization.